The UK will deploy troops to Ukraine for at least 5 years. Donald Trump's special envoy on the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, has landed in Moscow for talks with Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, the US can lose a trade war against China. So what is known about the UK's military planning over Ukraine, and why does Trump risk losing a trade war against China? As the Telegraph reports, Britain is considering deploying troops to Ukraine for 5 years. Military planners want deployment to help train and reconstitute the Ukrainian army to prevent Putin from attacking Ukraine again. Peacekeeping force would be dispatched to Ukraine to initially deter Russia from another aggression. French military planners have argued that it is unlikely Putin would sanction another attack against Western forces inside Ukraine when his troops are only capable of seizing small amount of territory. French-led and British-led reassurance force would also offer to help protect Ukraine's skies and seas. But the main aim of the deployment would be to immediately start helping to train and rebuild Ukrainian armed forces to deter another Russian attack. As we know, the defense ministers of Coalition of the Willing held a joint meeting at NATO headquarters. This meeting was chaired by the British Defense Secretary John Healey. The participants of the meeting identified further priorities of the coalition, including safe skies, safe seas, peace on land, and strong Ukrainian army. British Defense Secretary John Healey emphasized that the Coalition of Willing seeks to establish lasting peace in Ukraine. Quote, "Our forces in Ukraine will become a decisive and reliable element of the security system, ensuring that any peace established as a result of negotiations will indeed bring what Trump promised, lasting peace for Ukraine. The leaders of the countries are currently working on the details of the military planning of the mission." Head of the British Ministry of Defense assured that the allies are serious about this plan. Meanwhile, President Trump's diplomatic envoy, Steve Witkoff, arrives in Russia to meet Vladimir Putin. This will be the third meeting between Witkoff and Putin as Trump tries to negotiate ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. As Axios reports, Trump has become frustrated that negotiations haven't made much progress and said that at one point he was pissed off about comments Putin had made on Ukraine. If no ceasefire is reached by the end of this month, Trump could move forward and impose sanctions on Russia, either through his executive power or by asking Congress to pass new sanctions legislation. As Marco Rubio said, quote, "We will know soon enough, in a matter of weeks, not months, whether Russia is serious about peace or not. I hope they are." According to Axios, Russia made a series of new demands, including the lifting of some US sanctions. The US and Russia also implemented a prisoner exchange deal on Thursday that included the release of dual US-Russian citizen Ksenia Karelina. The negotiations on the deal were a result of a previous meeting between Witkoff and Putin in March. Trump said that he appreciated Putin's decision to release Karelina. He mentioned UFC CEO Dana White told him she is also girlfriend of the UFC fighter and asked him to help in releasing her. US and Russian diplomats met again this week in Istanbul to discuss the normalization of relations. However, the war in Ukraine was not on the table of these negotiations. At the same time, US Ambassador to Ukraine Bridget Brink has decided to leave her post amid growing differences with Trump's administration, the Financial Times has reported. Ambassador Brink was under increasing pressure from senior Trump's administration, who doubted her willingness to support their strategy. The White House and State Department did not comment when asked about the political differences between Trump administration and Brink. Also, the publication writes about the tension in Brink's relations with Ukrainian President Zelensky, which became the background for the resignation. Also, it was not the direct reason. The tension between Brink and Zelensky became apparent last week when the Ukrainian president criticized Bridget Brink for her response to the Russian missile strike on Kryvyi Rih, which killed 20 people, including 9 children. After the attack, Brink wrote on X, quote, "It is terrible that tonight a ballistic missile fell near playground and restaurant in Kryvyi Rih. More than 50 people were injured and 16 were killed, including 6 children. This is why the war must end." President Zelensky responded to her post and said that it was unpleasantly surprising and called it weak. He pointed that Brink did not use the word Russian when speaking and describing this missile attack that killed children. Meanwhile, China will raise tariffs on all American goods from 84% to 125% from April 20th, according to the finance minister of China. The step was taken after Trump raised U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods. At the same time, the ministry added that China will ignore further U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods. Quote, "Given that all the current tariff levels, there is no longer any possibility of market accepting American goods exported to China. If the U.S. side continues to introduce tariffs on Chinese exports, the Chinese side will not pay any attention to this." The day before, the White House clarified that the additional U.S. tariffs on imports from China as a result of Trump's latest decision are not 125%, but are 145%. At the same time, it seems like China has more chances to win the global trade war, according to The Economist. Chinese authorities are confident of their victory. After Trump announced an increase in tariffs on Chinese goods, Chinese officials promised to fight to the end. They believe that they have significant leverage over the U.S., in particular control over fentanyl prosecutors and ability to help resolve the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. In addition, the vulnerability of American companies such as Tesla may also become another tool for pressure on the U.S. Chinese officials believe that the American economy will not be able to sustain the inflation and the economic discontent caused by Trump's tariffs. They expect the U.S. will be forced to sit down at the negotiating table if consumer prices start to rise or employment decreases. Also, China is considering various options for responding to the trade war. These include ending cooperation with the U.S. on fentanyl, banning imports of American poultry and other agricultural products, restricting the activities of American law firms, and reviewing intellectual property rights owned by American companies. Chinese experts are even considering restricting imports of American films or banning them together. If the trade war continues, China will have to face the reality of economic disengagement from the US, which is previously rejected as a way to punish China. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has begun implementing a plan to take control over Greenland, which is based not on a forceful scenario, but on working with the public opinion of Greenlanders. This is stated in the publication of the New York Times. The plan to take Greenland under U.S. control was discussed at several meetings in the National Security Council and included several ministries. According to the plan, U.S. efforts will be aimed at convincing the 57,000 population of the island that they should ask to join the U.S. Trump discussed placing ads and campaigns on social media, and among the U.S. messages is an appearance sharing heritage of Greenlanders and people of Alaska. The Trump administration is also considering possible financial initiatives, such as annual subsidies of $10,000 for each resident of the island instead of $600 million in subsidies that Denmark provides to Ireland annually. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and glory to Ukraine!